Hey, Mug World Entertainment, and of course, Star Trek is now 60, or it's going to be 60 next month, the 8th of next month to be exact. And of course, the future of Star Trek is up for debate. Now, Comic-Con came and went, Star Trek was there, gave us nothing, except kind of hints as to what the next movie might be. Which, quite frankly, after hearing what they're saying, I'm going to be very concerned, because they're trying to say it's going to subvert expectations, which is never a good thing to hear. And quite frankly, the way it's moving forward, it doesn't sound like that particular movie will happen. There's two meant to be in development. That one from John Davis Francis, or whatever his name is, and something Goldstein. They're the ones that they've publicly announced. Yeah, it's kind of starting to sound like that one isn't going to happen. But the one thing that is starting to be very noticeable is the absence of Alex Kurtzman. Out of all the announcements they're starting to kind of put out there about the future and stuff, Kurtzman's name is never mentioned. And now, Paramount themselves has just come out and spoken about their ambition and their intentions for the franchise on the small screen moving forward in the future. And it's very telling, because once again, it's very evident that Kurtzman won't be involved. Because they're talking about, oh yeah, we've got plans, we're looking to bring in writers and stuff. Nothing about, oh yeah, we're talking with Alex, you know, we're seeing what he's floating. Nope. It's all, we're talking with writers. We're looking at what's going to happen with the future. And the future then, of course, is like, well, what is the future of Star Trek moving forward? Now, obviously, they're floating about the idea of reboots and stuff like that through the big screen. But of course, as we all know, Star Trek is really for the small screen. But it's the question of, well, what happens next on the small screen? So I'll read you a bit of an article that kind of talks about this and who it is saying it. So it's saying, as we await word on what's happening with the next Star Trek movie, Paramount's EVP and head of originals for Paramount, Jen Wiseman, is talking about the future of Star Trek on TV. Something fans have worried ever... what's it say? Had been worried wasn't even on the company's agenda. It was always on the company's agenda. They just have to wait to get rid of Kurtzman. Because if they announce a new show now, Kurtzman would have to be involved. That's the problem they have. They have to pretty much wait till he's gone before they can officially kind of announce a new show in production and stuff. Because if they announce a new show right now and say it's going to go in production this time, Kurtzman's contract would automatically be involved and it gets muddy. So that's why. So, it's saying 1 year into her tenure at Paramount Plus, Wiseman sat down with Deadline to talk about her plans for the network and was asked about the future of Star Trek. While Strange New Worlds and Starfleet Academy have completed production and even sold off the sets, costumes and props, Wiseman still calls the network the home of Star Trek and says that none of their strategy has changed in the face of the potential merger with Warner Bros. Discovery. That's not them talking about their strategy with Kurtzman and stuff. That's Star Trek is one of our 10 poles. Nothing's going to change that. That's what that means. So it makes it clear the network isn't done with it, adding, we have a series coming back. When asked if that meant there are already plans in the works, she explained why it's a priority, mentioning the hiring of originals EVP and big Star Trek fan Chris Purnell. Now, isn't that interesting? They've just hired a big Star Trek fan and an originals EVP. Sounds like Chris Purnell is going to be the person who's going to oversee Star Trek for Paramount and Skydance. Because isn't it funny? That's just the first part. We haven't even got into the real nooks and crannies of what she actually says. And no mention of Kurtzman. Now, it's interesting she says and we have series coming back. Now, that doesn't mean with like TNG or DS9 or something. That just means we have series, like ideas for Star Trek series to come back. So obviously they're saying we've ideas for shows. So it's not the case of, oh, we're bringing Discovery back or anything like that. But here's one of the first main parts, what she says. Well, it's one of the reasons why Chris is here as the resident #1 fan of Star Trek franchise. And there's so many people in this building, by the way, that are. It is our goal and it is our job to figure out what the next bounce of Star Trek is. Don't know why she says bounce, but she says bounce. I also find that interesting statement that she says there's also many people within the studio who are fans of Star Trek. Currently, none of the morons working on current Star Trek are fans of Star Trek. That's abundantly clear. So there are currently no Star Trek shows in production, and as far as we know, nothing in development series-wise. Wiseman told Deadline that talks have started, at least at a high level. That's interesting, where she said, we're talking to a lot of writers. We are leaning on CBS Studios, and it is imperative that we figure out what the next iteration is for this franchise, because it's just too important. We also are in touch with Paramount Pictures. They have a Star Trek movie that's in development. Now, once again, the most important takeaway from what she says there is we are in talks with lots of writers, and we're leaning on CBS Studios to kind of help with that and stuff. And how she says we need to figure out how we move forward with the show and how important the show is to the studio. No mention of we're in talks with Alex Kurtzman. You notice that? She says we're in talks with other people and stuff. Zero talks with Alex Kurtzman and Secret Hideout. That tells you everything you need to know. So it says the movie she mentions is the one being written by writing directing team Jonathan Goldstein and John Francis Daly. I don't think that's going to end up happening. It's just with the stuff they've come out and said already, they've already kind of irked the fans with this, oh, we're going to subvert your expectations and it's going to be very, very different and all this stuff. People are already going, we're out, because we know exactly what that means. So, in the interview, Wiseman also talked about the bigger picture in a way that clearly includes the Star Trek franchise, where she said, and there's nothing better than hearing an original idea for a grounded genre series that speaks to a lot of people. So the space is pretty wide open. And yes, you allude to Chris Purnell. There's no one better in that space. And there's no one more in that space that I want on my team. So that's her kind of talking about it. Yeah, it sounds very much like they are saying this guy is going to be in charge of Star Trek moving forward. Don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know this guy's like background or anything like that, so you know, until I kind of look more into him, okay, but the fact that he's actually a Star Trek fan might help. One of the things I think that could really get it back on track and fix it is you bring in this guy, Chris Purnell, who, by the way, it says up here, is not the NSL actor. So I guess there's someone called Chris Purnell on Saturday Night Live. But you bring him in, you work with people, and you bring in Terry Metellus, because that dude seemed to know exactly what the hell he was doing when it came to Picard Season 3. And if you can get him to give us proper Star Trek like these, the way he was with Picard Season 3, without having to stick in somewhat of the area of what Kurtzman introduced, like the dark lighting and the swearing and stuff like that, you could be into an absolute winner. One of the things I think as well they really need to start looking back into is putting it on terrestrial television. Don't just make it for Paramount Plus. Really put it back out there to the masses, because that is one of the things. You're limiting who's actually being able to watch this, because if it's a Paramount Plus exclusive, you're telling people, well, to watch this thing you have to subscribe to Paramount Plus, and there's so many people who are just like, I'm not subscribing to more services, screw that. So put it on CBS and see what it does. You know, put your money where your mouth is and see if you can get an audience back. Your audience for Star Trek is aging out. And the problem is, the stuff you're making that's trying to capture the new young people is insulting to the young people. Like, if I was in my teens again, and Starfleet Academy came out telling me, hey, this was made specifically for you, I'd be embarrassed and I'd be pissed to say, wow, that's what you think of us. Like, it's insane. And like this stuff, I know Lower Decks and Prodigy, a lot of you did like, but okay, it is what it is. You enjoyed it, cool, you got enjoyment out of it. But like this shit, like this is a gimmick show now. Like the tomorrow's episode is the puppet episode. 5 episodes in and 5 gimmicks. So they really need to kind of sit down, look at what Star Trek was and what it needs to get back to being, and really kind of just focus on it and stop trying to capture an audience that was never there in the first place. Oh, we're going to get such the young audience and the modern audience and all that. They don't exist. What you need to do is cater first and foremost to Star Trek fans, and we will introduce new people to it. We'll go, hey, you should really check this out. I think you'll dig it. You bring friends around to the house, just watch it together. They get into it. They pass it down to their kids and so on and so forth. That's how Star Trek has always grown, and that's how it'll continue to grow. You can't hide it behind a paywall and then hope the young generation will pay to watch your Star Trek show and movies. It's not how it's going to work. But it sounds like good news. We'll have to wait and see, you know. Let them put their money where their mouth is, as I said, and let's see what they actually managed to do. The first major step they truly need to do is officially announce publicly to us all that Kurtzman and Secret Hideout are gone. Hasta la vista, baby. That's what they need to do first. And once that's done, then we'll sit down and listen to you realistically about what your plans are for the future of this great franchise. And with that, I shall leave it there for this one. So do like and share and subscribe and hit that hype button and check out memberships and all that good stuff. Cheers. I'll catch you in the next one.